Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Thanks for being with me today. Today's story is about a gruesome family murder that took place in 2015, but has a very recent update. I've been following one of the survivors from this story on TikTok, and her life has been destroyed by the evil actions and the killers in this story. 4 people were murdered in the family home, all members of the same family. I have also seen some very recent posts by this survivor in which she details horrifying allegations against one of the killers, her own stepfather. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. This is the story of the Scott family murders and the upcoming trial for the killers, finally captured. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin.
What was the location of emergency?
Oh my God! I need somebody out here.
What's going on?
Oh God!
There's 4 people.
In my mama's house, and
Who are these people that are in the house?
it's my mom and my grandma and my granny and my stepdad.
What you just heard is a woman named Cathy Vilardi on the phone calling 911 to alert authorities that she has just discovered 4 dead bodies inside the Pendleton, South Carolina home of her family. The double-wide mobile home was located on Refuge Road. Murdered inside the home were 59-year-old Mike Scott, 60-year-old Cathy Scott, 80-year-old Barbara Scott, who was Mike's mother, and 82-year-old Violet Taylor, who was Cathy's mother. Cathy Vilardi, the 911 caller, is Cathy Scott's daughter. So we have 3 generations in this story. Police arrived at the scene and the area was cordoned off. As soon as the cops began to investigate the scene, they quickly discovered that there was no sign of forced entry. As you can see here, the door frame and lock are intact. It does not appear that the home was broken into. There were also bloody footprints left at the scene, some left by bare feet and others left by sneakers. Word spread through the area of the horrific family murder. All 4 victims, Mike, Cathy, Barbara, and Violet, had been shot and stabbed. The scene was described as bloody and gruesome. Autopsies revealed that Mike and Cathy had a large meal about an hour before their deaths, and that wasn't all the coroner discovered. The 4 victims had been shot, but that's not what killed them. They'd all died from having their throats slashed. After they were dead, the killers unloaded a gun on them. This was, of course, a particularly gruesome detail and showed a level of rage and hatred that seemed personal. The coroner also found evidence that Cathy Scott's heart was still beating when she was shot. She was dying, as the chest wound inflicted on her was fatal, but she was still alive when shot. Violet Taylor, this 80-year-old woman, was nearly decapitated. There was a shelf tipped over in the bedroom near a safe, suggesting that cash had been taken. There were kids' toys on the living room coffee table, suggesting the Scotts were expecting a visit from their grandkids. Police found an empty holster under the bed. A .38 caliber revolver was later determined to be the murder weapon. As the police continued looking into this, they found some disturbing information. There was tension in the family. Cathy Vilardi was married to this man, Ross Vilardi, and Amy and Ross were having a very difficult time financially. They'd opened a pet grooming business and reported to people that the business was doing well, but their tax records show the couple reported an income of only $27,000 the year of the murders. Despite that, Ross had purchased this expensive pickup truck, this sports car, and not 1, but 2 motorcycles. Something was not adding up. On the 4th of July, 2015, Amy had an argument with her mother, Cathy, and her husband, Mike Scott. The argument had something to do with Mike's behavior, and Amy told her mother that her kids, Cathy's grandkids, would not be coming to the house anymore because she was angry with Cathy and Mike. So let's talk a bit about Mike and Cathy. Mike did a lot of buying and selling. A box of gold jewelry was found in the home. This wasn't unusual, as Mike would often buy gold jewelry, watches, that type of thing, from people who needed quick cash, and then he'd resell those items for a profit. Mike also didn't trust the bank, and so he kept a large sum of cash at home in a safe, and this was well known. So immediately, the police had to take into consideration whether or not someone was aware of the jewelry and cash inside the house, and those items were the reason for the murders. But if that had been the case, why was there still so much jewelry present in the house? Amy and Ross were taken in for questioning. In his interview, Ross told the police that he was in bed by 9 p.m. on Halloween night. But the police found surveillance footage of Ross at a gas station after 9 p.m. Amy and Ross lived on the same property as the Scott family. They had a separate house, but it was built on the same piece of land. The police pulled Ross and Amy's cell phone records. Cell phone data did not support their claim of being home at the time of the murders, which was initially thought to be around 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, November 1st, but there was something that didn't add up. Inside the Scott family home was a large bowl full of Halloween candy that had not been passed out. This led investigators to believe that the Scott family had been killed on Halloween Day before trick-or-treaters would be out. There was, however, a text message sent by one of the victims on November 1st, so perhaps the Scotts just didn't have many trick-or-treaters, and that's why the bowl of Halloween candy was still full. I used to have to buy like 1,000 pieces of candy to get through a Halloween, and now I don't buy any. It's kind of sad. I get it. There's safety concerns, and a lot of people do trunk or treat now. But there were definitely some Halloweens where I still had a full bowl of candy. I don't really think that's the greatest indicator of when the murder was committed. As police continued to speak with Ross Vilardi, his story changed. He was also trying to direct the police investigation, concocting stories about Mike's shady business practices with people who were in desperate need of cash. And then Ross kept telling the police that Mike's sister stood to gain financially from his death, that she was also in need of money, and perhaps she killed the Scott family to get money from Mike's insurance policy. An officer named Steve Spagnola would later say that nothing out of Ross's mouth was consistent with the evidence. Cops knew that Amy and Ross had been in the house a lot, so finding their fingerprints and DNA inside wasn't any help. Amy is even seen on ring camera footage entering and exiting the house after finding the bodies. The cops were allowed into Ross and Amy's house, and that's when things took a very suspicious turn. Inside the Vilardi house, in a safe, the police found $87,000 in cash. The cash was wrapped and bundled as if it had just come from the bank, and photos from Mike's safe show cash wrapped and bundled in the same manner. The cops were even able to prove through photographs that some of the money in the Vilardi safe had the same serial numbers on it as the bundles previously stored in Mike Scott's safe. That seems very cut and dried, but there was a problem with that. Amy admitted to being in the house and taking some money out of the safe. That didn't prove that she committed the murders. The investigation continued for a week and then a month, but no arrests were made. Ross and Amy began an extensive and expensive remodel on not their house on the same property, but on the actual murder house. Ross and Amy spent tens of thousands of dollars remodeling the double wide, and then they moved into the house. A year and a half after the murders, in June of 2016, Ross and Amy Vilardi filed a lawsuit against the Anderson County Sheriff's Office demanding that their property, seized after the murders, be returned. No charges had been filed, and the Vilardis were accusing the Sheriff's Department of keeping high-value items that had no evidentiary purpose.
It's been 2.5 years since the murders of Mike and Cathy Scott, their mothers Barbara Scott and Violet Taylor, at the family's home on Refuge Road near Pendleton. Still, no arrests.
Be returned from the Sheriff's Office.
Today, Amy Vilardi, daughter of Cathy Scott, and Amy's husband Ross were in court, hoping to get back evidence seized when the bodies were found.
Nobody argues that the sheriff and any law enforcement has a right to go in, get evidence, use it. But at some point, through the passage of time and through the process of investigation, there comes a point where people have a right, a constitutional right, to their property back if it doesn't serve an evidentiary need for the sheriff's office.
According to a motion filed by Vilardi attorney Chris Pratt, some of the property seized during the investigation, 2 vehicles, several electronic devices, firearms, and more than $60,000 in cash. Anderson County Attorney Leon Harmon told a judge deputies need more time in their investigation. Harmon also says the person who called 911, which deputies say was Amy Vilardi, entered the crime scene before calling law enforcement.
We've got some issues there with whether or not some evidence may have been moved before the sheriff's office even got involved, and I think that's why we feel like we need to maintain control of the evidence until we get to the end of our investigation.
A judge denied the Vilardis' motion today, but said both parties need to be back in court in 6 months to review the case. Mandy Gaither, WYFF News 4.
Months later, a motion for summary judgment was denied. The judge stated that the cash and items seized were evidence in an unsolved quadruple murder, and the items could not be given back to Ross and Amy. The police couldn't seem to find solid evidence that Ross and Amy were involved, and the case began to turn cold. A year passed, and then 3.
News this evening, it's now been 3 years since the 4 brutal murders of the Scott and Taylor families in Pendleton.
That case has fallen from the spotlight as time has passed. 7 News reporter Nicole Ford sat down exclusively with the surviving family members who are still looking for some justice.
As the seasons begin to change, the skies darken, setting the mood for an anniversary a family never thought they'd have.
Raining that day as well as today.
The weather bringing back the haunting memories from 3 years ago.
My grandmother, she would rarely leave the house, so she would be one of the last people you would have thought something like this would have happened to, because you always feel like you're safe at home.
The day these 2 families lost 4 members.
They took so much from us.
Violet Taylor, her daughter Cathy Scott, her husband Mike, his mother Barbara, all found brutally murdered inside their Pendleton home.
We were never able to tell them goodbye in their passing. We didn't see them when they died. It's not like your elderly grandma passed away.
Well, 1,095 days have passed.
I've missed out on her getting to know my child and my nieces and nephews and my cousin's children.
The pain's still there, but the sheriff believes they're closer than ever as they wait for test results from the state.
Patience is a virtue, and that's something that we have learned over the last 3 years as a family, that it's patience, patience, patience. And it's hard. It really is, because we're just sitting here waiting for that justice that our family members of all 4 deserve.
As life moves on, it's not without anger.
We'll never get over the pain of losing them.
But it's also not without those 4 whose lives were cut short.
We try to live on through their memories. We have tried to not to move on, but to live.
2 families bonded by an incredible tragedy will continue looking for their answers.
The Scott family members were being patient. The police assured them that they were working the case and waiting for results of forensic testing, but another 5 years would pass before anything happened. It looked as though the case might stay cold, but behind the scenes, the police continued to work the case. They were determined to prove that Ross and Amy Vilardi killed the Scott family. By 2023, significant progress had been made, and a lot of it had to do with a pair of sneakers. In the surveillance footage taken at the gas station of Ross Vilardi on the night of the murders, he is wearing a pair of red Asics sneakers. Cops sent photos of the bloody footprints to the company that makes the sneakers, as well as to experts in the field of blood evidence and footprint analysis. All 3 returned the same findings. The footprints in blood inside the Scott family house were made by a pair of the specific type of Asics sneakers worn by Ross Vilardi in the surveillance images taken from the gas station. This, combined with the fact that the Vilardis and the Scotts were at odds, the Vilardis were in serious financial trouble, but had $87,000 in cash in their house, cash with the same serial numbers as cash previously in Mike's house. That was enough, and the police decided it was time to talk to the Vilardis again.
Okay, guys, my bad. I had this whole interview of Ross and Amy in a police car. I found it on another YouTube channel. I credited the YouTube channel, and I even posted it as a test to make sure it wasn't copyrighted. Then when I went to load my video the other day for you guys to watch it, it came up as copyrighted. I was like, fine, I just won't monetize this video. Yeah, that sucks, but whatever. And then I found out not only was it demonetized, but it was blocked in the United States. That means that 68% of my viewers would not be able to see the video. And you know I am not going to leave you hanging without your Thursday video. So that like 7 minutes worth of interview footage is not going to be here. I'm going to instead walk you through what was said during the interviews. I'm going to do it more quickly, which means this video is going to be shorter than usual. I feel bad because Tuesday's video was a little bit shorter as well. That was a breaking story and there's just not a lot of information on it yet. This was supposed to be a full-length 30-minute video. I'm not going to post something that is blocked for 68% of my viewers. I take posting regularly every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 o'clock Mountain Standard Time very seriously. I know there are those of you that wait for me to post, and I am not going to leave you without a video. So I sincerely apologize. I try to do everything I can to make sure these things don't happen. But once in a while, I just end up taking it up the anyway. The police go and knock on the door of Ross and Amy Vilardi's house, and Ross goes out and sits in the cruiser with them. He starts to tell them how Mike was in shady business dealings, and he blames this whole thing on that. Then the police go and talk to Amy Vilardi for a few minutes. She goes into this whole thing about how she's in therapy after finding the bodies because it was so traumatic. And then the police say, we're going to talk to Ross one more time. Ross goes back out and sits in the car with the cops, and they tell him, look, we have these footprints in the blood and they match the sneakers that you're wearing in the videotape on the surveillance footage taken from the gas station on Halloween night. And about 5 minutes in, Ross caves and he says, so if I start talking to you, since I'm the first one that came and talked to you, I'm going to get a deal, right? Like maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years. And they say, well, you know, we can work on something like that. He's basically throwing Amy under the bus. That's the gist of what happens. Again, I apologize that I cannot show it to you.
I have to say, I'm sure it was very satisfying for these cops to deliver this evidence to these two. They'd been working this case for so long, and cops are human beings. They can't help but develop feelings of disdain for killers like this. These two people, in the minds of investigators, not only killed 4 human beings, but members of their own family, elderly members of their own family. Can you imagine the hatred and pure evil you have to have in your heart to slit the throats of 2 80-something-year-old women and their senior citizen kids? It is just horrifying. You have to be so incredibly vile to do something like this. Finally, it was time to move and make the arrests tied to this terrible crime. Ross and Amy Vilardi are arrested at their home in Columbia, South Carolina, and taken into custody for the murders of Cathy and Mike Scott, as well as for the murders of their mothers, Barbara Scott and Violet Taylor. The Vilardis were taken before a judge for their initial hearing in February of 2024, where a judge denied them bond, citing the heinous nature of the crimes and concerns about them being a flight risk.
Now, your initial appearance date is going to be February 20th of next year at 9:30, and that's at the Anderson County Courthouse. You are required to appear. If you miss your hearings, they can issue a general sessions warrant. If you're picked up on that, you will be held until a hearing is had. Ms. Vilardi, this hearing is being recorded and it can be used later against you in court, but do you have any statements you want to make to the court at this time or anything you want me to know?
Would like to be able to get back to my boys. I'm a stay-at-home mom and definitely not a flight risk. I guess that's all.
Okay. You are going to be ordered to have no contact with any of the victims' families during this time. If you violate that, any bond you have can be revoked, as well as you can face additional charges. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. State your name for me.
Ross Vilardi.
You've got 4 counts of murder. Each one carry up to life in jail or the death penalty if you plead guilty or if you're found guilty. And your initial appearance date is going to be February 20th of next year at 9:30 at the Anderson County Courthouse.
In April of 2024, this case was featured on an episode of Cold Justice. I believe it was filmed before the arrests took place, but you can watch that episode if you're interested. It's called House of Horrors. Just months ago, Amy Vilardi's daughter, Ross's stepdaughter, began posting on social media. She was 9 years old when these murders took place. This daughter claims that she has been sexually abused by Ross Vilardi. She states that Ross her for 3 years of her life. She says she tried to confront her mother Amy about the abuse, but that Amy didn't believe her. This daughter ran away from home in April of 2021 because she was scared her parents were going to kill her. When she came back, her mother took her phone from her and locked her in her room. This young woman didn't believe her mother killed her family members at the time, but her instincts were telling her that she was in danger. When her parents were arrested, her worst fears were confirmed. And I still cannot get over the fact that these two monsters murdered this woman's mother, her husband, and two elderly mothers in the house they then spent the stolen money on to remodel, where they killed 4 people and then just moved into the house. Do you want ghosts? Because that is how you get ghosts. And I hope Mike, Cathy, Barbara, and Violet are hunting the hell out of these two. Now, since the arrest, footage has been released of police speaking with a former employee of Ross and Amy's. This woman worked as a dog washer at their pet grooming place, and she told the police that Ross joked with her about committing murder. These two vicious maniacs are behind bars awaiting trial. There is currently no trial date set, but sources suggest the trial will begin in mid-2026. I will, of course, keep you updated as this case progresses. I don't expect to hear much in the next year, but it's good to know that these two have been arrested, and hopefully that means some closure for the family. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I sure appreciate you. This is my podcast, Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. It's on Apple and Spotify, and I post brand new episodes every Monday and Wednesday. If you haven't yet, would you leave me a review on the podcast? Apparently that really helps. Don't forget about our fundraisers. There's a playlist on my channel called Fundraisers. If you've got an extra $5, I've got a really good cause for you. Thank you especially to my patrons. If you want to join my Patreon, you will get some bonus content there that you can't see or hear anywhere else. I hope you're enjoying the summer. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.